Do sacred love. Do sacred love. Baby, baby, baby. Welcome to tonight's stream. We're on a roll. Is this, I don't know how many days in a row this is, but we never stop. We never stop streaming. That should be put on a t-shirt. That should be the new motto. Never stop streaming. We try our best. Let's dive right into it, shall we? Freaking HR from the Bad Brains. We're talking about the Bad Brains. Was it last night? Yeah, it was last night. And a Facebook memory reminded me of a great article that it's a story that's been covered before. If you've seen Banned in DC, the Bad Brains documentary, that's right, Amy. I against I. It's the same story. No fight, no glory. I against I against I against I against who? Oh, that's not how it goes. No, we were talking about HR. We were talking about the Bad Brains yesterday. We were talking about Banned in DC. I'm in Banned in DC. You can see me for a split second because I saw the Bad Brains on a boat. I posted a screenshot of a very young me, a 21-year-old me with long, dark hair getting on a boat to go see the Bad Brains with HR. It was a great show. It wasn't as exciting as the show where I got the crap kicked out of me in the mosh pit at CBGB's, but it was still fantastic show. Was glad to have seen it the second and final time that I saw the Bad Brains. I love the Bad Brains. HR is an amazing human being. He's an amazing frontman, and yes, he has fallen off. And yes, the Bad Brains, they've had some controversy. Let's put it that way. I don't know what is. Some of it is. I don't know what is fact and what is not. A lot has been said about them over the years and some of their beliefs, their intolerant beliefs, but we're putting that on the shelf. We're not here to talk about controversy. We're here to talk about and revel in how amazing the Bad Brains are. And they are truly amazing. A synergy, a chemistry, we talk about musicians a lot. We've talked about chemistry in the past, how important chemistry is to a band. Look no further than a band like the Bad Brains. Even when they don't want to work together, record together, they still find themselves in a room jamming out because of the chemistry. It's the same thing with the Cro-Mags, right? Those guys, don't like each other. And yet for many years, at least up until the year 2000, that was like the last real time, Paris, who I've had on the show here before, Paris, who I know, and Harley, who I don't know, I've always found a way to work together despite their differences because of their musical chemistry. So musical chemistry, it's just this thing, and you can have it with someone, and it doesn't matter whether you like that person or hate that person. If you have that musical chemistry together and you're an artist and you need to create, you have to you have to submit, you have to kneel, you have to give in to the chemistry in order to create the art. And nothing truer could be said for the Bad Brains, Paul Hudson, a.k.a. HR, Dr. No, Darryl Jenifer, and Earl Hudson, the drummer. And there's nobody quite like the Bad Brains, truthfully. They're just like, they're almost like an anomaly. They started off, kind of playing jazz, I believe, like kind of like jazz music, and doing some hard rock. And then they heard the Pistols and they heard the Ramones, and suddenly, and they were really good at their instruments. So what they supercharged what they were doing. And I believe they used to be called Mind Power, but then they took the name Bad Brains, comes from a Ramones song. If you listen to Road to Ruin, one of the great Ramones albums. Probably for many, the last truly great, flawless Ramones album, top to bottom. If you're a diehard fan, you'll say, "Oh no," you could go on and on into the Ramones discography. But if you're a casual fan, I would say the last, like, you'll probably say, "Oh yeah, yeah, their last great album was Road to Ruin." Or maybe if you're a little bit further in, you'll say, "Too Tough to Die." A lot of people think Too Tough to Die was the last great Ramones record. I'll go all the way up until Adios Amigos. I love, what's that song? The Crusher is a great song. That's on their final album. But it's funny, Dee actually recorded that for his rap album when he was Dee King. Funny to think that The Crusher was meant to be a hip hop rap song. It's that just another great example of, being one thing and then trying to do something else. Like Dee Ramone, who lives and breathes everything punk rock and, is this incredible songwriter. He, he tried to write a hip hop rap song and came out with The Crusher. Like that's that sort of thing. It's pretty funny. In the same way that, the Ramones themselves were kind of trying to write Beach Boys songs and end up with the Ramones music. I don't know how we got on that tangent. Oh yes, because there's a song called Bad Brain on Road to Ruin. It's a great track, one of my favorite tracks. And that's where the Bad Brains get their name. And they started off in DC. They wrote a song called Band in DC, which was about their kind of experience sort of being blacklisted in the DC scene. And they went up to New York, that's where they recorded the Roar cassette, self-titled, Seltzer, the Roar cassette, which is a flawless masterpiece. And then they recorded Eye Against Eye, which is the follow-up. They had a bunch of other recordings in between there, and I think that all got put out as Black Dots or whatever. Yeah, his raps, Funky Man was another one of Dee King's raps. We should talk about Dee King someday. What's going on, Eddie? How you doing? Oh no. Oh crap. Hope I didn't lose you. There. Hello. Do you see me? Tommy, can you read me? Let's just double check that we are still intact here. I think we are. I think we're still cooking. We'll find out in 2.1 seconds here. So annoying when that happens. So, all right, yeah, I think we're good. So the Bad Brains, they put out the Roar cassette, and that is just thank you, Steve. Thank you. We are still live. The Roar cassette is just like absolutely a phenomenal masterpiece. All their great songs. You have Pay to CUM on there. You have Fearless Vampire Killers, aka FVK. You have you have I Love Ja, Destroy Babylon. I mean, just classic cut after classic cut after classic cut. They're all phenomenal. Sailing on, just great way to open the album. Band in DC is on there, of course, as well. And the thing that's amazing about the Bad Brains is not only are they doing this incredibly just like raw, energy soaked hardcore punk rock music, but then they're a dynamic band. They go from doing hardcore punk to doing reggae and dub, and they go back and forth. And that was one of the main tenets. That's what, we talked about Sublime on this channel before. That's what Bradley Noel and those guys, they all keyed in on that. They keyed in on like the wow, then they took ska. They took what the Bad Brains were doing. What the Bad Brains were doing were on opposite ends of the spectrum. And Sublime, they take ska music and sort of insert it in the middle. But you really, here I am giving Sublime that credit, and you really have to give that credit to Fishbone. Fishbone is another revolutionary band. And here's the thing. These guys are black, okay? And why does that matter? It does matter in the sense that you don't see black guys typically making music like this. When I first heard the Bad Brains, the very first Bad Brains song I ever heard at the age of 15 years old was Fearless Vampire Killers. And when I listened to that song, which by the way, just absolutely like blew me away, it kind of reminded me of like it was a song that really painted a picture in my head of what I was kind of seeing, like just this like I don't know. I painted like sometimes when I listen to songs, like I could sort of like write a story in my head as I listen to the song. And the story that I'd written in my head when I was listening to Fearless Vampire Killers was just this. Well, it was about a fearless vampire killer, of course, but just like this grand entrance into the coven, the cave of the vampires. I don't know, something like that. That's not what the song is about. Fearless Vampire Killers is sort of like an allegory for, corporate scum, I guess, something like that. We don't need your filthy money. We just want to end your world. That music just like froths up inside of me, makes me want to go crazy. In any case, when I heard Fearless Vampire Killers, I thought I was listening to just a bunch of like, skinny, angry white guys. That's what it sounded like to me. So when I first saw a picture of the Bad Brains, I was like, what? It just blew my mind. And my little 15-year-old brain could not process that this was music being made. I didn't know people that looked like that could make music like that, at that young age. So it was such like a beautiful awakening for me to like sort of like discover this band and instantaneously fall in love with them after that. At the same time, that's when I'm first discovering Fishbone too, and these two bands that sort of, the first Fishbone song. And why am I bringing up Fishbone? Because Fishbone is kind of like they're doing something similar. They're doing more ska, but they're also kind of doing they're more ska than they are reggae. Like the Bad Brains are more reggae, they're more ska, and they don't really they have a lot of horns. The Bad Brains don't really have horns in the Bad Brains don't really have horns in their music at all. I don't think there's any horns in Bad Brains music, but there's plenty of horn music. I mean, Dirty Walt, he plays the trumpet. If you ever get a chance to see Fishbone live, that is a show like those guys at their age. They've been going since 1979. Those without breaking, they never broken up. Angelo, who I've gotten to meet several times, and Norwood, they've kept that band going. It's pretty amazing. In any case, I feel like it'd be wrong to give, like, I don't want to give Bad Brains all this credit for sort of not typically we don't think we don't see people of color making music like that, and it's so cool to sort of see not only that, but how they incorporate other music into that punk rock, i.e. the reggae, or in the case of Fishbone, they do it with ska. And then Sublime, White Boys, then those guys, they came in and they perfected, they like sort of married it together even further, where the ska is like the switch. And a lot of people don't like Sublime, but if you can see the musical genius of Sublime, you can see like the switch. What am I talking about? Like, here's reggae. Sorry, here, wait, you can see this is hard to do on my screen. So here's hardcore punk, here is reggae, and then in the middle is ska that's used to flow into the hardcore punk or flow into the reggae, and then underneath all that is hip hop. And it's like all these amazing elements. And that all comes from stuff like the Bad Brains and Fishbone. So yeah, and the Bad Brains, they've come and they've gone. They've had a bunch of different lineups. They're incredibly dysfunctional. HR has had he's sort of erratic, and he's had his struggles with substance abuse, and it's definitely affected the band in many ways. They've had to replace HR several times with other singers. They had this guy Israel Joseph for a while. He sang on an album in the 90s. And there was an original instrumentalist, Amy mentioned, Sid McRae, but he's like, I mean, he doesn't appear on anything, and he's he's like he was there before they really became the Bad Brains. They weren't. I don't even think they were called the Bad Brains when Sid McRae was in the band. It's when HR comes into the band, and HR is Earl's brother, Earl the drummer, and that's his into the band. That's when the Bad Brains that's when they take off. That's like 1978, maybe 79. Eddie says there's a track from their live show in Germany in 83 at the Loft. I've seen it. And at the 24-minute mark, I've never heard in my life. It's super bad. Does anyone know what it is? I don't know about the 24-minute mark, but I've definitely seen that show. And you can see HR at the end. He picks up a guitar and they just start playing reggae music. It's really freaking cool. And I'm so glad that Mr. Bark likes the Bad Brains as well. A band out of Detroit named Death played even earlier, mid-60s. They played in 1973. We've talked about Death on here before, and I feel like I don't know. I don't want to get into all that. I don't want to take anything away from Death, but the Bad Brains deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for their influential contributions to the genre. I would say Death does not, personally. Yes, HR did have many, many demons. And yeah, the documentary is on YouTube, and I am in the documentary. I'm going to keep saying that over and over. I was shocked. You don't understand. I was watching it on Hulu when it first came out, I think in 2013, 2014. And I was just shocked. As soon as I saw the boat in New York City, I was like, oh my God, that's the show I was at. And I just couldn't believe that I was in it, even just for a single shot. It was still really surreal and cool to see that. And a point of pride that I don't talk about enough on here. And I'm very proud of that. So I just got done listening to one of their lives that was released in 91, 31 years ago. How crazy. To one of their lives. Got it. Yeah. They do have a live album that was produced by Rick from the Cars called Rock for Light. It's pretty good. Yeah, I did a post for anybody who wants to see the screen. I found the exact time mark, so you'll see me with really long hair at 21 years old on the boat. It's cool. In any case, we're here to talk about a very specific legend that they cover in the documentary. Because we've sort of been all over the place as we talk about the Bad Brains and who they were and why they were so great. And they were the one thing we didn't say was how influential they are. HR taking Henry Rollins aside and saying, you should be a lead singer, and then putting Henry in front of a microphone and doing 4 Bad Brain songs while HR just like watched him do it, that kind of thing. Or, they just were, when they touched down in New York City, that's what really ushered in New York hardcore, I think. You had some form of hardcore music in the Stimulators and the Mad and the Misfits and Kraut and all that stuff. But then when the Bad Brains come in, that really just sort of explodes everything. You have the Nihilistics, you have the Undead, you have Even Worse, you have the Cro-Mags. Of course, they come a lot later. But I feel like all of that really ignites, like really explode. Heart Attack is another one. Shrapnel. All of that stuff really explodes when the Bad Brains invade New York, which I think is in the year 1980, which makes sense because then hardcore got really big from like 80 to, or really 81 to 84, right? 83, 84 is the sort of the downward, the decline of things. But HR, as we said, he was erratic and, had substance abuse problems. And yes, I love that. HR is the punk version of James Brown. Hell yes. I could not agree more. But in any case, and the thing was, what would always happen is, HR would mess up or get kicked out of the band or leave the band or something would happen with the band. And then they would need to record. And then HR would show up again and they would be recording. And that happened with Voyage, the Voyage album, Voyage into Affinity. Is that the name of the album? That happened there. They had all that music written, and HR, they were going to record it with somebody else. And then HR found his way back into the band, and they went into the studio and he laid down his vocals. He wasn't supposed to be on that album. Happened again with the album with I Joseph, not I Joseph, Israel J. I don't know, the other guy. He's like a bolt of lightning. It's just like on the Roar cassette, you know? And that's the thing. Like, you've never seen, you just got to look it up on YouTube. I mean, to see the type of energy that this dude like brings out. He's just like, I mean, he's doing backflips on stage, literally doing actual backflips. And that's where, you know, you look at John Joseph from the Cro-Mags. Yeah, thank you. Quickness. Right. And that Voyage into Infinity was a track. The album was called With the Quickness, or Quickness, which is a more, them moving in a more metal sort of direction. I believe that's their third album. But you look at John Joseph from the Cro-Mags, all of his swagger, all of his drip, that's all HR. That all comes from HR. And he used to roadie for HR. And we talked about on the previous stream, literally, the first time I saw the Bad Brains at CBGB's, it was John Joseph singing. It was billed as the Bad Brains, and it was John Joseph singing. And I got the tar beat out of me in the mosh pit. I split open both of my elbows when I stage dived. Skinny young guy, just getting thralled pretty bad. But the show, you know, as I said, John Joseph, he had soaked up all of HR's swagger, or at least attempted to. And so that's what he was outputting. And so that to me felt way more like the energy that I would have gotten at an early CBGB show, because when I did see them on the boat, that was after HR was back in the band, and people were starting to, as you'll see in that documentary, that Band in DC documentary, people getting really angry with HR. You know, he was like on this like anti-violence kick. I've met HR twice, and both times that I like briefly spoke with him, it was really weird. One time he was on the boat, and I was actually asking him about Sublime, because Sublime had backed him up. He has a great solo album called Charge. You should check it out. Or is it Rasta? It's either called Rasta or it's called, no, Rasta's the name of the track, Charge. And there's a song called Shame in the Game on there, really great. That was a solo album from 1991, and it's like a masterpiece. And it doesn't sound like Bad Brains, it's reggae, but a little bit more funky and poppy, I would say, than like straight traditional reggae or whatever. But yes, as Angus says, he had so much energy. He's like a ferocious badger or Wolverine. There's that Bad Brains live in '82. You just see HR. The crowd is like a violent ocean of people crashing up against the stage, and HR is just right there in their face, pushing back. You can by watching that video, you can smell the funk and the sweat that must have been in that. I mean, I've been in that room. I know how hot. I mean, it gets so crazy in there. You know, you can just feel the atmosphere, and to watch him do these backflips, it's just insane. He just does them out of nowhere. He really is. And what I said in the description of this video is that HR, Iggy Pop invented the game as the crazy sort of ultimate frontman, and he's still the ultimate frontman because he's still going. He's undisputed. You know, I was talking on the stream the other day about how I was talking with Joe Truck from the Brain Eaters, how I saw Iggy in 2016, and Iggy in 2016 at the age of 69 years old was still stage diving, you know, just unbelievable. But the thing about HR was HR took everything that Iggy Pop was doing, took all of his energy and just turned it up to the max. And he's really kind of, you know, an irreplaceable frontman. Yes, I had a better time seeing John Joseph fronting the Bad Brains than I did HR, but that was HR, way past his prime, like very much not who he was, like, in 82. And like HR in his prime, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. You just watch those videos and you're just in awe of this dude and what he is doing. And I was trying to think too. I was like, who could replace HR? He's irreplaceable. But if you had to have someone in his place doing his own thing, you would get Angelo Moore from the Fishbone, dude. Angelo Moore could totally front the Bad Brains and do Bad Brains songs. Angelo Moore is insane. And I take that back. We were just talking about that HR is the James Brown of punk rock. I disagree. It's actually Angelo Moore. Angelo Moore is literally channels James Brown in the best way ever. And he does it with a Thurman too. He's got these like Dr. Mad vibes. I saw Fishbone on a boat as well. Loudest concert I've ever been in my life. The ceiling was really low, and we just got blasted with the music. It was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. So here we go. Let's read about this legend now. We've talking a long time about how great HR is. We know we've established the phenomena that is HR and just his insane amount of energy. And again, if you haven't heard it, just go listen to HR is like the Ike Turner of hardcore. I think that might be more accurate. Yeah, dude, Angelo Moore, and he has they've shared bills with Bad Brains, and I definitely think that, I mean, they performed at the Afro Fest. They performed together. Like they definitely, they could do some stuff. In any case, when Eye Against Eye was being recorded, HR found himself in jail, and this is the story about how HR recorded his vocals for Sacred Love. You ever listen to Sacred Love? It's unbelievable. All right, let's go to the article here. We have a little article. This is from I don't know what this is, Clairvoyant without the vowels. That's the name of this. Link is in the description. This is by Howie Abrams, and it's published on January 10th, 2017. How HR from the Bad Brains recorded Sacred Love from jail. One of the missions I took in putting together Finding Joseph I, an oral history of HR from the Bad Brains. By the way, that is not just a book, that's also a documentary. There is an HR documentary, which I have not seen yet, separate from the Band in DC film, called Finding Joseph I. So there's a book to go with it, and it's an oral history of HR from the Bad Brains. If you don't know what an oral history is, probably the most famous one is this book right here, PKM, which is an oral history of punk rock, mainly exploring punk rock via, New York City into like everywhere else. They don't really touch on the West Coast stuff. For that, you need We Inherited the Neutron Bomb. I have seen about him singing Sacred Love in the documentary on YouTube. That's banned in DC. Is that why Yes, that is why HR's voice sounds covered in Sacred Love. The reason why his voice is so distorted is because he's singing it through a telephone receiver. But we'll get to that in a moment, okay? So he says, one of the missions I took in putting together Finding Joseph I, an oral history of HR from the Bad Brains, was sorting through the countless myths and rumors about Bad Brains inimitable. I think that's what I don't know this word. Inimitable. All right, guys, we got to look it up. Damn it. Okay, that is a word. Inimitable means so good or unusual as to be impossible to copy. Absolutely accurate about HR. JD, I am sure I know why people don't like HR. We are we are not here to discuss the controversy, but there is controversy, people. There is. And if you want to know more about it, go look it up. It actually surrounds a song off of Quickness, as well as what happened in Texas. But again, we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the legend of recording from jail. The lead singer, Paul H.R. Hudson, as well as the band itself. I wish to confirm or disprove them so that fans everywhere, myself among them, would have answers to their numerous questions, some closure perhaps. Quite possibly the most intriguing story was that H.R. singing Sacred Love, culled from the Brains' groundbreaking second album, Eye Against Eye, which is also a phenomenal album, over the phone from Lorton Reformatory due to his incarceration for marijuana possession sometime before the recording of the LP. Did he actually perform the vocals while in the clink? Did producer Ron St. Germain simply add effects to his vocals to make it sound as if he sang it from jail? Was it true that his blood brother and Bad Brains drummer Earl Hudson was in there with him? The answer is yes. Inquiring minds want to know, and here's how that discovery process played out. Look at him. Earl Hudson. So now this is going to read like an oral history, so we're going to have to switch off. This is different people's testimony. So this is Earl Hudson, human rights. That's what HR stands for. He's also HR's brother and the drummer of the Bad Brains. Earl Hudson says, it was 1986. We was hustling, man, trying to eat food. You know, you can't play music and work at damn Walmart. You got to do something. So yeah, you get caught up sometimes. We were getting ready to go on tour beginning in Providence, Rhode Island. So I went to pick HR up. He put on some runnings. He put some runnings under the seat. And I don't know. I think somebody, I don't know what runnings means. I guess that has to do with weed or something. I think somebody busted in on us or whatever, because we came to a red light and all of a sudden the lights of a police car came on and they went right under his seat. It was my car, so that's why I had to go to jail. But he primarily caught the beef for that because it was under the seat he was sitting on. We were in DC jail together, and that's when we were pretty much finishing up the Eye Against Eye album. They wanted him to finish up the vocals on Sacred Love. So somehow or another, it got hooked up and recorded. My dad was a correctional officer. He was a captain, and 2 of his sons are in jail. I did not know that. I did not know his dad was a correctional officer. He never came to see us because my dad's a former soldier, and he don't play that ish. But he'd have his friend in there bring me some cigarettes, and he must have something or other to do with recording HR in jail. Let me take that last line again. But he'd have his friend in there bringing me some cigarettes, and he must have had something or other to do with recording HR in jail. That's interesting because I always, okay, and let's just keep reading. HR says, some dudes were telling me once that by smoking herb and selling herb, it would be a one-way ticket to the big time. Well, it was my ticket to one of the deadliest places you could think of, and it was called DC jail. I had been selling a few bags, and I called my brother to come pick me up. One night, they pulled us over, and there was a whole bunch of marijuana in teeny bags. It wasn't a picnic in there, and there wasn't much to do except sit there and wait until your time is up. Anthony County, he's in the documentary, this guy, and he's been there with the Bad Brains for a long time Bad Brains manager. I don't know if County, I guess that's how you pronounce his last name. HR was an orderly in there. He got to clean up after lunch or something like that. He told me that the mess hall was not connected to the rest of the place. There was a phone in there, and based on the layout, nobody would be able to hear him, and they wouldn't be able to see what was going on. So he could sing this song in there over the phone. Ron St. Germain, producer of the Bad Brains, Eye Against Eye. So this is such a crazy story, dude. I have been doing a lot of work up in North Brookfield, Massachusetts at Longview since the 70s. Just a great place to take the band where you got them out of their environment. I remember HR walked into the studio. He was kind of floating. He said, "I have arrived. I have arrived." It was a really impressive place. A 150-year-old farm on 90 acres, just beautiful. We set up the sounds there, and I said, just give me 2 full takes all the way down, all the way through of everything we got. They finish up, and HR tells me, man, we got to get these vocals because I got to go to jail tomorrow. And then, what? Now you're telling me? That's why we had to do what we had to do with Sacred Love. He only had time to get a couple of takes because he had somebody coming to get him. So they were recording Eye Against Eye. They were recording in a studio. They didn't have, they had a finite amount of time, and HR, as they're finishing up, HR goes, we gotta get these vocals because I'm going to jail. I got to serve my time. So he only had time to get a couple of takes because he had someone coming to get him. And here it was, 1 o'clock, and we still got the vocals to do. He just railed it down, and we got everything done except Sacred Love. So when he's saying we got to do these vocals because I got to go to jail tomorrow, they got to do vocals for the whole album. It's not just Sacred Love, because you'd imagine that they'd have time to just do one song. So they did everything but Sacred Love. So he's in the DC lockup, and it was kind of a communal effort between the guys in the band and the band's manager, Anthony. We got it set up where he could call me on a specific day and time, and he would be able to sing this song over the phone to New York. Isn't that insane? That's so mind-boggling. I booked a studio right below Studio 54 called Soundworks, which was kind of the Steely Dan haunt. I knew the tech there, and he hooked me up there. We were supposed to have a direct patch from the phone into the tape, and I got there, and it didn't work. Of course, I was freaking out, so I improvised and did what we did in the old days, which was I took another phone and put it in the studio, and it had an aural tone monitor. It's like a small cube, 5 or 6 inch cube speaker. We taped that to the speaker portion of one of the analog telephones and put a sound blanket around it. There was another phone in the studio that the band could actually speak to HR through while we were screwing around in the control room. On the phone, we had a microphone taped to the portion that you could listen with. So it was real ghetto. My God. So crazy. What's up, Walter White? How you doing? Walter White from New Zealand, everybody. That is nuts. HR. I picked up the phone and called the operator and asked if I could make a collect call. Thank goodness someone was there on the other end to receive it. Ron was there, picked up the call, and began to play the music back. And they asked me if I would, to the best of my ability, give them some vocals. And that's what I did over the phone. They recorded it and put it down on the record. I found it rather bizarre, but it wasn't my idea. It was Ron's idea. Let's break this down, everybody, for a second. It's not just like, here's the phone, just sing the song into the phone. He's got to be able to hear the track so that he could sing along to the track to make sure he's singing in sync, right? Like, that's the whole point of what he's supposed to be doing. So that's why they attach the cube speaker onto the earpiece, and basically they're doing playback through the phone. So he's going, sacred love, like he's doing the thing through. It's just insane. And then they're recording it on the other end. I just, and you know what's so cool about that stuff? Like, you know, part of the magic of recording, and I do a lot of audio recording. I do some for, my little music experiments that I like to do, but I also do location sound recording. I do all sorts of stuff. And, there are so many things that affect the way you capture a sound. It's the microphone you're using. It's the space you're in. What kind of noise is in the air, what kind of wires are connecting your, is your cable balanced? Is it unbalanced? What are, the preamps that are picking up the electronic signal. There's so many different factors, and this is analog, so that's different from this. But there's so many different factors that contribute to how a sound like is baked together when you're recording it, you know? Um, I mean, you look at like all the stuff that the Beatles were doing. I mean, any band, like, the way that you might record, like for instance, when if you're miking a drum kit okay, if you're miking a guitar and you have two microphones and one of the mics is directly pressed against the amplifier and the other one is away from the amplifier, like just sort of capturing, they call it capturing the room. You're trying to get all these different like fidelities of the sound to get a particular tone or sound, that kind of thing. And so the fact that they recorded this over a phone not only gives the track just this unique feel, but it just makes the track that much cooler to know that he's recording this from jail. Just the circumstances of DIY, do it yourself, DIY or die. Saint Germain says the whole call was less than 2 hours. So that's crazy, because I thought the call was like a, like a 3-minute call, like the length of the track. The call was longer than that. It was 2 hours. Instead, do you know how expensive that collect call must have been? It wasn't cheap. They had to, do it. It was probably very expensive to get this done. The whole call was less than 2 hours. Instead of calling from a payphone, he actually called in from a guy's office, a guard or something. The guy thought, hey, this is pretty cool. This guy is going to sing over the phone from jail, and he left him alone in there. Okay, so maybe it wasn't a collect call. I don't know. This whole thing came about because necessity is the mother of invention. Hell yeah, dude. It's not only the mother, and what is the mother of invention? Creativity, man. Creativity is that mother. If I don't think of myself as a religious person. I'm not. I'm definitely a spiritual person. But if you asked me, Jeff, what is your religion? Do you have a religion? My religion is creativity, man. That's my religion. The processes of creating things, whether it's creating a podcast, just talking to you guys, or writing a little tweet, writing a tweet on Twitter and sending it out into the world, or making a little audio recording, or doing a little doodle, or doing a little sculpture, or shooting a film. I mean, that is my, Mama Jam creation. And it's just, hearing about, how necessity is the mother of invention. It gets me so high to think about that. This is interesting. Angus says jails now have phone time limits. They would have to record within 10 minutes these days. That's crazy. Well, this was a special phone, I guess. It's not exactly like the other phones. Mark says, I found you about a week ago. Show is very cool. Still a Misfits fan to my older age. That's awesome, Mark. I'm really glad that you like the show. And thank you for joining us, man. Thank you for joining in the live conversation. Back in the 70s, producers were technically staff for the record companies for the most part. There was this real separation between church and state, so to speak. And they would call into the engineer, how you guys doing? Let me listen. Hold the phone to the speakers and play it. So we would hit mono and put it up and play it for them. I love what you kids are doing. Get me a cheeseburger and a Rolling Stone magazine, and I'll see you in a couple hours, that kind of thing. So the techs eventually came up with a patch where we could take the mono bus off the console and literally patch it into the telephone line so it sounded normal. So there is a precedent for how they recorded HR in jail. And it comes from the way that, a record company would check in on a producer in a recording studio. That's so crazy. The techs eventually came up with a patch, or a patch meaning like, to patch in the connection. We could take the monobus off the console and literally patch it into the telephone line so it sounded normal. It's so insane. I was like, you're spending all this money for a studio, way more than we're getting for studios today. Why do you want to listen over a phone as if you're in an elevator or holding for a doctor's office or something? Anyway, that's how the whole idea to record him via phone came about. To begin with. You just improvise. Now, the kicker is HR always traveled with his Bible. And those first couple of pages of the book were really thin, kind of like onion skin. He always cleaned his herb on the first page of the Bible because it wouldn't mess up anything. They actually let him have it in jail. I could hear through the phone that he was smoking something. I said, "What are you doing, man?" He says, "I'm sparking one." I said, "Huh?" He said, "Yeah." He actually ripped the page with all the weed resin out of the Bible and rolled it up and sparked it. There had to be so much resin on it that he got a buzz. He's in the slammer for pot and he's smoking his Bible. I love it. And when I was 15, I kind of did the same thing. I had this little red one hitter back when I smoked pot. And what I would do is, when it got nice and gunked up, I'd take a paper clip and I would try and get as much resin onto the rolling paper as possible and then smoke the rolling paper to try and get high. And it was not very, you have to kind of cook, you have to heat resin. So, rolling paper wasn't very effective, and I'm now sober. I don't do those things anymore, but I do know a little something about that. So I found that interesting. It was amazing. It's crazy. He was smoking his Bible. He also finished the lyrics to the song in there, and the experience of him being in there made him actually complete the song. The whole thing went down. There's a tape of that whole thing somewhere because I had a room mic in the control room and there was one out in the studio. So it's somewhere. That's crazy. So there's a recording, a full recording of HR sort of working out the song or completing the song. That part of the creative process was also documented, but apparently he's never been able to find it again. It's a shame because it's a real piece of musical history. Oh, wouldn't that be perfect for YouTube, man? It's a great story. At the time, we were talking to the Letterman show and a couple other shows, and they didn't even believe us. In all my travels around the world, even though that record never, ever went gold anywhere, I go on, take that again. In all of my travels around the world, even though that record never even went gold anywhere, I go on the planet, people come up to me and say, "Oh my God, Eye Against Eye changed my life." There is no record that I have done in 40 plus years that gets that kind of reaction. Once in a while, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, whoever, but nothing gets that kind of passion. There's one Mick Jagger and there's one Bob Dylan and there's only one HR. Why do some bands explode and become Led Zeppelins of the world and others don't? He had the potential, but there's a lot of things that need to happen besides just having the talent and the ability. All excerpts are taken from Finding Joseph I, an oral history of HR from the Bad Brains. Go seek out the book or the documentary and rent it or buy it if you can. And, this last line really does stick with me or make sense. He says, "Why do some bands explode and become the Led Zeppelins of the world and others don't?" HR had the potential, but and this is true, man. HR had the potential, he had the talent, but there's a lot of other things that need to happen besides just having the talent and the ability. And while, having a really cool legendary story like this being true, like recording the lyrics to Sacred Love from jail, like while it's like a really cool story, it's not like, at the same time, like successful bands, like they're not, their lead singers aren't in jail. They're out there grinding. I don't know. I mean, that's not true. That's not true either. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of people that they have a lot of talent, but they're also mess ups, screw ups, that kind of thing. Here's one additional story about Sacred Love and why I'm reading this. It's from my own personal history. Before we get there, let's go to our sponsors really quick, and then we'll tell the story, and we'll go to some comments, and we'll wrap it up. Do you guys, for anybody who needs stickers, we are powered by riotstickers.com, as you can see right here. Go down in the description of this video. You will find a link. Click on that link and put in the promo code Frumess, Frumess, and you will get 50% off 50 3-inch by 3-inch stickers, vinyl stickers at riotstickers.com. They really are the best, you guys. I've done business with Riot Stickers. A lot of my friends have done business with Riot Stickers. We're proud to have them be our sponsor on this show. And you're not going to find a better deal. It's normally $59, but for you can get it for $29.50. You're just not going to find a better deal than that. So go check out riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. We're going to play our little video, and then I'm going to tell my little story about how I was inspired by Sacred Love.
Posters and promo cards, there's nothing we can't print for you. From stage backdrops to bass drum heads, we can print on shirts, we can print on hats, we can print on pants. Cheap prices and high quality, quick turnaround times and free shipping. We also offer free artwork support, great customer service, and so much more. We are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb.
Oh, and speaking of Riot Stickers, there he is. There they are. Check out riotstickers.com, everybody. Okay, here's my quick story, and then we will go to we will wrap this up. We'll go to some comments and wrap this up. I made a feature-length film called Romeo's Distress, micro-budget feature, which, by the way, is playing at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia. I'm going to be there. So if you're in the Winchester, Virginia area, you should come. There's going to be a bunch of films. It's going to be a real meeting of the minds at the Genre Blast Film Festival, Alamo Drafthouse. I'll be pumping that a little bit more. That's in late February. I never thought that I would have a film playing at the Alamo Drafthouse. It's pretty cool. I've had shorts play at the Alamo Drafthouse, but my feature-length film, I'm stoked about it. In any case, when I was making that film, I made it on a micro budget. I was working as a waiter at the time, and I was funding that movie with the money that I was making for my tips. That's how I made the film. And it took a long time. It took many, many, many months. It took over a year. It took about 18 months to make that film. We shot 23 days in 18 months. Every time I got enough money, we would do another shooting day, that kind of thing. Towards the end, we had a problem. One of my actors was becoming SAG. And that presented a big problem, because when you become SAG, when you become a union actor, you can't be involved in non-union productions, and my production was a non-union production. Although he was okay, because he had already been shooting. He started the production non-union, and I believe the rules allowed him to continue the film. He was worried about it, understandably so. We had to shoot him out as fast as possible, because it was okay, because he started the film non-union. Therefore, it wouldn't, if he shot one more day, technically being in the union, what was anybody going to know? No one would have been the wiser. So we finished our last day of shooting with the actor. It was great. Everything worked out. We had wrapped up, but there was a problem It was a marathon shooting day. We shot, 16 hours and we shot, 12 pages. I mean, just really crazy to shoot 12. You ever try shooting 12 pages? It's, supposed to be a minute per page. It was even more. Like we shot a huge chunk of the movie in that one. It helped that pretty much the whole, action, the whole scene, it was one long sort of, climaxing scene, and it took place in a garage. So, it wasn't like we had to move and do a lot of different setups. That was helpful. So we finish the day. He leaves, and I'm cutting the film together, and I realized that we never recorded some of his voice. We needed to record some voiceover dialogue. We needed some lines for a scene. His introductory scene is over the phone, over the telephone. And I'm just like, I'm so bummed because I'm like, what am I going to do? I got to get this guy back. And he's super uncomfortable because of the SAG and stuff, that sort of thing. Just a real friggin' bummer. And that's when my partner on the film, he had a great idea that exactly the story of Sacred Love. Basically, because we needed him to, record his part of a phone conversation, we figured, why not literally record the thing over the phone? And that's what happened. So I set up a mic just like this one, similar to this. I set it up in the closet of my apartment at the time, and I had the actor call me over the phone. He was willing to do it. And I put the receiver right here, and we did all of his lines of dialogue in the closet over the phone because it was going to be a phone call anyway. So instead of putting the notch filters, because what you do is, in order to, you can, any sort of, like, even though I sound really nice on this microphone, if you wanted to make it sound like it was a phone, like a phone call, like a telephone, you would use some notch filters to remove some of the frequencies in my voice, so it would sound more tinny, so it would sound more like this, like that kind of thing, like when you're talking to someone over the phone. This was like recording the voice with all of the production, all of the post-production that would have been done. It was baked in. We were doing it in real time, and it was totally taking a page out of what the Bad Brains did with Sacred Love. And that's how we got. So when you listen to the actor doing his lines, he did all of those lines over the phone. So if you're in a pinch and it's a phone part, there's nothing to say that you can't record it over the phone, as we've learned from HR and the Bad Brains. There you go. Let's go to a couple of comments. I saw one up here. Oh, Paul Seacrest. What's up, buddy? Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're well. Eric's ready to smoke. There's a big conspiracy behind his program. I'm not sure. The fitness guy is a D-bag? What? I don't know who you're talking about. Prison could not stop him. Definitely not. Definitely not. Jails now have the phone time. Let's look at this comment. This one looks really snarky. This is from Al on Facebook. He says, okay, ready? I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this in a snarky kind of voice, because this is how I imagine this dude. Sorry, Al, if this isn't how you sound. I'm really not making fun of you. I'm just, making fun of you. Hold on.
The Bad Brains are the most overrated band in punk and hardcore. Sure, I love the Ryer album, but Rock for Light was pretty much just a re-recording of it. Eye Against Eye was good, but everything after that was just a step further downhill. I've seen them multiple times since I first saw them in '89, and they were mostly always good. They just put out too much garbage and didn't cut it, but no one would dare admit it because it was the mighty Bad Brains.
Okay. And that is your opinion. You are entitled to it. You've been listening to the Bad Brains a hell of a lot longer than I have. But yeah. I don't know what else to tell you, man. Sorry, I guess. Sorry you feel that way. I agree. The Bad Brains should have been one of the biggest bands in the world. And it upsets me that the Bad Brains are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They should be. I read that some fellow prisoners actually cried when they heard HR sing. Wow. That's pretty. That's beautiful, man. Am I going to Riot Fest in 2022? Probably not. I have to go to a film festival in September, and I don't think I will have the funds to do both, although they are right next to each other. And if I'll be back in Winchester. Maybe I could just road trip from Winchester to Chicago and then fly back, because I would love to see the Misfits do Walk Among Us. That would be really fun. Winchester, VA is not far from Nova, DC. Yeah, man. So come through. Come hang out at the Alamo. We're gonna have a lot of fun. I get uncomfortable when things on my body start to sag too. Ha 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 ha. Hardy har har. Yeah, it was an excellent idea. Could have FaceTimed it. Yes, Mark, we could have. We didn't need to. We just needed his voice. And this was in 2015, I think, 2015 or 2016. And I've never owned a cell phone in my life, so I did not have FaceTime. I guess, yeah, probably wouldn't have put in. We're laughing with Al. Exactly. We're just laughing with. Beautiful interpretation of the snarky voice. Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. The Bad Brains got your money, though. Yeah, they sure did. They sure did. I mean, listen, he's entitled to his opinion. I disagree. We all know that the Bad Brains have kind of fallen off because, HR is not what he was, but they're still the Bad Brains and they're still great. I've never listened to Into the Future, but I did listen to what's the one that the Beastie Boy guy produced in 2007? It was not okay. They haven't really, I mean, you really are just good with some of those early albums, but there's something to find. I and I Survive is a great song. I like that song. I'd rather the Bad Brains always be, even if it's the Bad Brains now, like I never want the Bad Brains to stop recording music. Like I always want them to be out there doing that thing. I know Dr. No was having some ailments a while back and he's doing a lot better. Those guys, they all live in upstate New York, like over by Woodstock. I think Darryl Jenifer lives up there, and Dr. No, he lives up there too. I don't know about Earl Hudson though. And that's basically it. We're going to be attempting to do the Streaming Evil Live show super early tomorrow at 3 p.m. EST. So check that out. And if you are a fan of Scream, the movie Scream, like with Ghostface, that's going to be streaming tomorrow night. That's not going to be live. That's pre-recorded. And it's me and my friend, Mark Parker. We did his podcast called Release Date Rewind. And if you are into Scream and want to like deep dive into how Scream is really just a continuation, or like very much like the 90s version of Psycho, like Hitchcock's Psycho, definitely check that out. It's a really, really good conversation. And, I had a lot of like sort of like hot take theories about some of the Scream franchise. So if that's your bag, check that out. We do a lot of different stuff on this channel. Seth Rogen prefers scary movie. That's the original title of Scream. I started to get into reggae because of the Bad Brains. That's awesome. Angus, you have to listen to Rasta. It's either Rasta or Charge. Now this is going to bother me. What the hell is the name of that HR album? Solo album. HR Rasta. I think that's what it's called. Oh, that didn't work at all. Here, let's try that again. HR Rasta. Dun 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 do 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 do. Really great album. That album is called Charge. It's called Charge. It's not called Rasta. Rasta is a song on it, but just check out the album Charge from 1990, not 1991. That also was released on SST Records. I did not know that. I wonder if HR ever got paid. Who knows, man? Yeah, it is called Charge. Right. And that has Shame in the Game. Why you gotta do a thing like that? Shame in the Game. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this channel, we're always on here, as you know. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like. Yes, Shame in the Game. Why you gotta do a thing like that? I can't remember how it goes. Shame in the Game. Why you gotta do a thing like that? Shame in the Game. You hear Bradley Noel do it. He does like a duet with HR in that song. It's bad, dude. It's like bad isn't good. It's like bad, like the Bad Brains. Yeah. No, please subscribe. Please leave a comment and please like this video. Those are great ways to support this channel. There are other ways to support this channel, mainly the Patreon, just various different ways. Please check all those out. Check out riotstickers.com. Thank you so much, guys. Peace and hair grease. Here is our little spiel about Patreon. Join it now.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jeff. So I've decided to make a Patreon. What is Patreon? I don't know how to define a Patreon. Let me look it up. Patreon is a membership platform that makes it very easy for creators to get paid for the things that they're already creating. I want to do it full-time. I want this to be my full-time job. In my efforts to make that happen, I've set up this platform. Is it going to work? Is it going to be successful? I don't know, but I would rather try and crash and burn than not try at all. The goal is to create enough passive revenue so that I can continue to do this full-time, uninterrupted. Why? Because I love to do this. I love creating content. I love making videos. I love shooting films. I love doing podcasts. In case you couldn't tell, I love to talk and I never shut the fuck up. So right now I've kept the Patreon incredibly simple. There's 2 tiers, and that may change in the future. The Murdergram is a simple way to extend support for all of the hours and hours of free content on the channel for nothing more than $1. 38 cents goes to Patreon. What's $1.38, eh? It's less than a cup of coffee, but it's a great way that you can show support for very little effort. When you divide that $1.38 by the hours and hours and hours of time spent listening to this endless drivel of content, the dollar cost average works out. Next up is the YouTube casualty for $6.66. The YouTube casualty is loaded to the gills. Enjoy the archive ad-free as well as ad-free early access to special docu-style podcast videos, music reaction commentaries, and the like, a month before they drop on YouTube, loaded with ads, I might add. You're also going to get exclusive content and behind-the-scenes content that is not available on YouTube or anywhere else. So you get to peek behind the veil. And believe me, there's a couple of choice pieces. Most of all, more than anything, whether you join the Patreon or not, I just want to thank each and every one of you that comes to the channel, that watches all the shows, that leaves comments, that participates, that subscribes. That's really the most important thing. This is just trying to find a way to earn a living as an artist. And with that, thank you for my TED Talk. Join the Patreon because we need you!
66 cents.